It's time for Twig. This week in Google, Kevin Marks joins us to talk about Google Me, the social graph, and the difficulty of making it easy to connect with friends. It's all coming up next on This Week in Google.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for This Week in Google is provided by Cachefly. Cachefly.com. This is Twig, This Week in Google, episode 56, recorded August 18th, 2010. I'm not dead yet. This Week in Google is brought to you by GoToMeeting. Bring people across the country or around the world together with a web conferencing tool that's the best of the best. GoToMeeting. For your free 30-day trial, visit gotomeeting.com/twig. It's time for TWiT, This Week in Tech, the show that covers all your technology needs from the Google. Thank you. I got an ant from the other room. Thank you for watching and... I'm just on automatic. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. It's time for Twig, This Week in Google. The Google, the cloud, the Googleverse. We cover it all right here with our good friends Gina Trapani of smarterware.org. Hello, Gina.
Hello. How's it going?
Oh, it's going great. Where's your bike?
It's over there.
Okay. This is the newly lit and studioized Gina Trapani.
Yeah, I got some softbox lights. I feel like a French fry on the,
the griddle.
on the shelf right now.
On the griddle. Good to have you. Also with us, of course, from Seattle, he's speaking, Mr. Jeff Jarvis of BuzzMachine.com. Jake in the background. Jeff and Jake were on TWiT this week, which was a lot of fun having you. Jake's ready to go home. You can tell.
There's Jake.
He says, get me out of here.
There he is.
Jake's waving.
Get me out of here. Enough with the hotel rooms, Dad. You guys had fun, though. You went to Google. You went to Facebook. You interviewed Mark Zuckerberg.
We met with Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook, with Ed Williams, and interviewed him at Twitter, and with Philip Pudd Kaplan at Brisley. What do you call it?
Blippy.
Blippy. Thank you, Blippy.
Actually, this is for your book, Public Parts, which you're working on right now. And I understand Pudd said that I sold a lot of scales on Blippy.
Well, actually, he said you were a little late into it. Matt Cutts was the first guy who bought the scale, and there was then the kind of viral buying, and he said, no, Leo wasn't actually at the top of that.
You know what I loved? Matt Cutts, who has lost so much weight, and he hasn't talked about it. He's been quiet about it, and he's only recently gone public, but he just looks fantastic. So it's perfectly reasonable that Matt should sell so many scales. Also with us, glad to have him. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Matt just climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. He made it to the summit.
Holy moly. Also with us, there he is, Kevin Marks, Ribbit.com. It's good to see you once again from BT. And on the whiteboard, if you look very closely, is the plan for global domination.
No. Global distribution.
Global distribution. There it is. I just want to point out something, Kevin. I don't know if you know it, but your microphone is actually behind your head on your headsets.
That's because I'm using this one.
Oh, look at that!
Oh.
He tricked us. You can move that one back into the camera range. It's a good mic. That's that Yeti mic, isn't it? From
the Yeti mic, yeah. No, I was just moving it off my keyboard. But
you sound good. No wonder you sound so good. How could he sound so good with a microphone behind him? Tricky.
It's the magic.
You're a tricky fellow. So we actually we kind of voted you on the island last week. Jeff, Gina, and I were talking about the Google Verizon proposal, which they hope to make law. And, Jeff really kind of made the most salient comment. Why, Google? Why? What we were curious about, having as a former Googler, Kevin, is what your insight might be into the internal divisions over this. It's Google's a big company. They don't act. They may speak with a single voice, but they don't act. Or they don't internally maybe have that same point of view. Do you think there's some dissension among the ranks over this net neutrality move?
Oh, I'm sure there is. Yeah, I mean, this is a complicated problem. The challenge is always how do you keep the net open and how do you make it useful for everyone? And broadly Google wants that, and it looks like they've decided this is the best thing they're going to get for the moment. That was my read on what they were saying publicly, and some of the stuff I've seen Vint Cerf and Richard Witt and the others say around the topic. I think there's, for me, the bit that was weirdest was this split between wireline and wireless, because that's far too broad in my head. I'd say there's a difference between cellular and wireless. We don't want them saying, oh, and Wi-Fi and white spaces and everything else should be non-neutral too. That's the bit that makes me a little nervous. If they say cellular internet, then you can make the arguments that you and Stacey and Kerr were saying last week about this thing is different. But I would be careful that as this passes through Congress and gets mutilated by the other telecoms lobbyists, it doesn't end up saying, oh, we can do what we like to Wi-Fi as well.
Do you think it's fair for Google? I mean, it's a reasonable thing for them to say this is the best we're going to get, and we wanted the protections for landline. I mean, isn't the future in mobile, and aren't they selling us out? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm sure they're selling us out. It feels like that a little bit, but I think they're just trying to come up with something that gives them some protection. I mean, the other bit for me is that there's a certain amount of a storm in the teacup for this. If we actually believe that the internet is better and these cellular things will be worse, then we shouldn't be that worried. They're just going to be less useful, and we'll end up using Wi-Fi more like we are at the moment. That's my sort of long-term view on this is, if they want to make crappy networks that are less useful, well, and charge us money for that, then that doesn't seem like a great business model to me. So the market will protect us?
I think over time we'll realize that there are better things, better ways of getting internet connectivity than paying a cell phone carrier $100 a month for it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree,
it for us.
But if that's your choice, the problem is there's never been a free market in cell carriers. It seems like they've all colluded it.
Yeah.
Let me play a little bit. This is just to show you that there is some talk about this, even in the mainstream world. Jon Stewart on the Daily Show last night. You sent me this clip. He's got a new segment called Jon Stewart, Internet Predator.
Reality. On one side, those who want the internet to remain a wide open marketplace of ideas. On the other side, a larger group who have no idea what net neutrality means. But it is an important issue. A few years ago, a Google vice president and one of the inventors of the internet put it best.
The biggest concern I have at this point is that in the absence of some form of protection, that the broadband service providers will be able to discriminate against the consumers as to which products and services they're able to reach. We must preserve neutrality in this system.
This is Vint Cerf talking.
Allow new Googles of the world, new Yahoos, new Amazons to form.
Thank you, Obi-Wan. Makes sense. Google's unofficial motto is "Don't be evil." So they would naturally oppose big corporations getting together to secretly decide what you can and cannot see on the web. Am I correct?
What Google is proposing with its partner Verizon is essentially a toll road system, a separate internet for wireless devices only.
I love his...
What?
What?
For 4 years, Google, the Don't Be Evil empire, has gone from net neutrality will allow new Googles and Amazons to form to net neutrality will allow new Googles and Amazons to form.
No, that's Jon Stewart. He's a comic, but I have to say, we've already seen surveys say that most Americans under 25 get their news from Jon Stewart. So he speaks for a large constituency. Is that an unfair characterization of what's going on? It seems pretty much what we were saying last week, wasn't it, Gina? I mean,
yeah, and it was kind of funny. I love how he said there was this larger group of people who have no idea what net neutrality means.
Well, that's true, but I was gratified that he talked about it on the Daily Show, right? I mean, that shows that there's some interest in this.
Definitely. I love that he covered it on the Daily Show. I mean, it was oversimplified, and he laughed about it. But yeah, I mean, he pretty much hit the nail on the head. What about Google's PR response, which published on Thursday, which was the day after we did the show? Someone on Twitter said, someone in Google PR is listening to Twig.
Yeah, well, I don't think it was just...
Compliment. It wasn't just us. Of course not.
But they said what Kevin said, which is this is the best we could get.
Right. And did that
why are they the ones getting it?
That's a good question. Why is it their deal to make this decision?
Right,
Kevin. I saw somebody on Twitter or somewhere complained that we're so American centric on Twig because hey, we're American. Sorry, but can you add some international perspective here because you're both familiar with what's going on in the British political scene and work for a British company? What's the where does this stand there? What's the comparison?
In fact, weren't you in Britain when this all went down, Kevin?
Yes, yeah. I've been on holiday the last 2.5 weeks, mostly off net, so I missed big chunks of this debate. So, there's this sort of the idea of net neutrality is one thing, but there's this sort of deeper legal idea of common carriage, or in the UK, EU, we call that mere conduit, which is the idea that everyone should have access to the service, and they shouldn't be, as long as they pay for it in the same way as everyone else, and you don't discriminate based on who they are. And this is a sort of deep legal principle that goes back a long way to the mails and stuff like that, and that's something that carries through. And so part of the problem in the US is that the FCC moved the regulation of internet from a type that had common carriage requirements, that's Title II, to something that didn't, Title I, back in 96, I think it was, a while ago. Stacey probably gave you more details on this last time round. Other places in the world, they do have common carriage requirements like this and mere conduit requirements. The other thing that is done is what we call structural separation, where you have different companies running different layers of the network, and that's something we have in the UK. There's a BT subsidiary called OpenReach, whose job is to run the cables, to run fiber, to run copper, to light it up, to get stuff running, and then to sell that to anyone at the same price. So the rest of BT buys it from them at the same price as anyone else can, which stops us doing the vertically integrated thing that otherwise the telco seems to be the natural thing you want to do. I think that's a good legislative structure, and something that was partially there in the US and then got sort of eroded away over time. And I don't know exactly the timeline, the details of that. I'm sure you could find someone like Gordon Cook who could give you chapter and verse on that. But that is something that is different in the UK than in the US. And the other thing is that's different in Europe and the UK is that pretty much every carrier is on the cellular spectrum is using the same standard. They're all using GSM. So you can buy a phone in the UK for £20. It's a pay-as-you-go phone, and you just put a SIM into it, and then you load that up for with another £20 worth of calling, and you use that, and then when it expires, you can refill it again or not. And you can buy. I did this last week with a colleague. You can buy a little bag of SIMs for £1 each that belong to all the different mobile networks, and then load them up. So you can plug them in and out of the phones as much as you like.
But so how does that change this issue of kind of a gated, really pay service on the mobile? I mean, they obviously you get a different contract with those than you would with a monthly paying. You're not watching television on it.
No. So I bought a pay-as-you-go SIM from Orange in the UK, and what I got for that was I get so many it's like 10p a minute for calling, so many texts, like 300 texts a month, and 20 megs of internet a month. So there's that's not much, but you can actually use it like that, which means I can take an Android over there and plug it in and make it work. Whereas there is more interoperability there because there's some standardization at the lower levels, and then there's competition at the upper levels. My take on this is that overall, I think we're moving beyond special networks to special purposes. And that's the cellular networks are sort of gradually going that way. They were very voice-focused networks, and they're becoming data networks, but they're not. They're having trouble hitting that, and they're now saying, please use Wi-Fi. 5 years ago, the carriers wouldn't let you buy a phone that had Wi-Fi on it. Now suddenly they're pleading with you to use Wi-Fi instead of their networks for the higher bandwidth stuff, because their modeling wasn't assuming that you'd be using, Spotify or audio streaming or listening to TWiT or anything like that on your phone over the network. They assumed you were making calls or doing small email-like transactions over it.
Fools that they are. Well, yeah, I mean, you're kind of in this, but BT is in this business, right? And Ribbit is in this business. In fact, I think if you wanted to pick a poster child for net neutrality, it'd be companies like Ribbit or Skype, companies like, that do kind of traffic that might compete with a carrier. You don't want Ribbit to be discriminated against. No,
I mean, that's, well, when I was in the UK, I took my Droid with me. Now, my Droid is a CDMA phone, doesn't work in the UK, but on Wi-Fi, I can use it as a web device. Right. But also, I've got it set up with Ribbit and with VoIP on it, so that if someone rings my phone in the US, after 3 rings, it routes it to Ribbit, and Ribbit then calls me back over Wi-Fi on the same phone, and it rings as a VoIP phone.
This is exactly what carriers hate.
So to some extent, it's what carriers hate. But Verizon doesn't have an option to do that.
Well, were you to do that on a 3G network, they would really hate it, because then you'd be using a wholesale bits instead of retail phone service. Bits.
Well, that's interesting, because I got the Skype client for the Droid. Which Verizon promotes. Verizon sent me a postcard saying, "Get the Skype client, you'll love it." And if you launch the Skype client on the Droid, it says, "I'm not running until you turn Wi-Fi off, because I want to bill you for the minutes."
Oh, and then they bill you for the. Now they don't bill you for cell minutes, but they bill you for the bits.
They bill you something. I'm not sure exactly what.
Oh, how interesting! Yeah, because we just got a story that Verizon's putting Skype even on feature phones now.
So, if I launch it, it'll say turn off Wi-Fi or else.
Yeah, my Droid X does the same thing. I didn't. Oh, that's very interesting. So there's another way around it.
It doesn't work on Wi-Fi?
No.
At all? Like you have to be on. That's insane.
Yeah. So they can bill you, basically. They can't measure Wi-Fi. You're not using their network. But as soon as you use the 3G network, they can measure it and bill you. That's what we're talking about, aren't we?
Yes. Well, then the other one is that I just got there we go. You read that.
Skype does not work on Wi-Fi. Requires switching to a Verizon wireless data network connection. And so what it does is it actually turns your Wi-Fi off.
You have to explicitly turn off Wi-Fi or it will just quit.
So it's not really Skype is really what it is. It's something else.
Well, the problem with Skype, Skype is great, and it's held up as an example of this, but Skype is a proprietary protocol run by one company, and they've cut a BizDev deal with Verizon. That's what's happened.
Right.
Whereas the voice over IP stuff, the stuff that we do with SIP Droid and the Ribbit routing and that is some standardized stuff. You've got a SIP protocol stack that says how you connect, and then you've got a bunch of codecs that are commonly agreed of how you move the audio and video back and forth. That's the
as consumers,
there's a protocol stack that we can use.
What we're seeing as consumers is Google, Skype, and other companies arraying against our interests in favor of their own financial interests, in favor of their own bottom line.
Well, I'm not. I'm not quite sure whether Google has a direct financial interest in this or not. I don't see. That maybe that shoe hasn't dropped.
Well, the only thing we could hypothesize is that because Google now sells so many Android phones, they're kind of in bed with Verizon. It just makes sense that they're going that they, like Skype and these other companies, are going to.
Yeah, but that may have been their ability to have a basis for talking to Verizon about stuff. But the Android is properly open source. It's not fully under Google's control, which is a good thing. One of the fascinating things that I've seen doing, looking at this Android development is how many Android devices are showing up. I wish I had them here. My colleague has. We put a menagerie of these together.
There's literally dozens.
More. There's hundreds.
Hundreds.
There are all these little Chinese devices that are Androids that are some are this big and some are this big, and they're tablets and they're phone-like things, and they're cheap. You can buy them for $50 retail from China, and they're not beautiful bits of hardware. They've got resistive screens, not capacitive, but they work. They run Android. They run your apps, and that for me is a massive sea change. Google's sort of to get the powered by Google thing on the back, with Google, you have to sort of do a BizDev deal with Google and sign up with Gmail and that. But just to run the Android builds yourself, you don't have to do that. You just need to download the code, compile it, and write some drivers. And we're starting to see this sort of, all the consumer electronics companies are doing this rather than write their own firmware. And so, I predict within 6 months or so, all the little photo frame things and all those devices like that are that are all over the place and sort of turned out by the consumer electronics industry will start to run Android just by default because it will be cheaper than building their own stuff for everything. And that's going to start getting really interesting. And I'm not completely sure that Google's ready for that. If you read what you must have to be an Android device spec, it says you must have a camera and you must have a whole bunch of different bits and pieces that need to be there before they will approve it as an official Android device. Whereas actually what these guys are doing is saying, okay, forget the camera, we're building tablets, or we're building something that looks like an iPod but happens to be running Android instead. And that's for me, that's really interesting. That gives us this sort of huge Precambrian explosion of interesting devices to work on. Because the thing about Android is that it's the first open source consumer operating system. Mm-hmm. And it is something we haven't seen before. We've had open source operating systems, but they never had actually that much adoption. Whereas I'm sure you've been waving the charts around where Android is like a third of all phones in the US and that kind of thing. Yep. But I'm seeing this other sort of groundswell of gadgets that aren't phones. They're not showing those activation figures, like the Kmart device. Have you guys seen that yet?
I haven't played with it. We've talked about it. I haven't played with it yet.
Well, I think there's one somewhere in the office. It's not a great device.
Yeah.
You got one?
No, he's just waving his hand.
I'm not raising my hand because of the latency I have.
Aha.
I was going to say there was one bit of news in the feed is that the report that on Black Friday Google and Verizon will announce a Chrome-based tablet.
That's one way to respond, isn't it? Is to do a standard with Verizon, of all people, that challenges things like the Ogden. That's what they did with the Nexus One. They said, this is the platform. This is what it should look like. You can buy other ones, but this is what this is the definitive Google experience. Is that the idea of doing your own Chrome? By the way, it doesn't. I don't know if it's Android. I think it might be Chrome OS.
Yeah, they announced
I think Chrome OS is what they're saying.
Yeah.
Or did they announce it? Was that a rumor?
It's a rumor still. Unnamed source at Download Squad says an HTC tablet running Chrome OS will be sold in Verizon stores November 26th, day after Thanksgiving, Black Friday. HTC and Verizon have not commented on that.
Interesting.
But that's Chrome OS. See, I wonder why Google even, and we've asked this before, I think, on the show, why Google even bothers with Chrome OS at this point. They have
they have several things going on at once,
Well, let me play this out for a second. But Kevin, if you don't have Android on the device and you only have Chrome, does that, I'm just thinking out loud here, which is dangerous, but does that then take away some of the functionality that we might want? It gives more control to Verizon, or does it give less control to them because it's purely the browser?
That's a good question. I think Chrome is purely a browser, and that means you can only do browsery things with it. So doing, it's not completely clear what you would need to do device access to do things like telephony with it. There's some, I haven't run a Chrome build, and I've only seen them running, so I haven't actually done in-depth comparison. But
so that would mean that Verizon is in charge of it as a phone. That we can't. What you just said, I think, is that others couldn't cut in on its phone and communications capabilities, and Verizon has the lock on that by not having Android, by just having Chrome. So we can use it as a browser, and that's fine. But that's all we can do. Browser and HTML. That's it. So
the challenge there is bringing those functionalities to the browser, and they're not fully there yet. With there's ongoing discussion in HTML5 about how to bring more audio video capabilities to browser stuff, but that's not really agreed yet. So there isn't a spec for that yet.
But you wouldn't have Skype there, for example.
No, not unless they. Yeah.
Very convenient. You completely control what apps are on there.
Right, but also you wouldn't have. There isn't an HTML5 way of saying capture voice yet.
Mm-hmm. So it couldn't be a phone.
Yeah. Well, depends. If they put Flash on it, then you could use the Flash stuff. We've built phones over Flash that run in browsers. So if they've got Flash in the Chrome thing, which they probably have, you can build stuff that way.
Is there anything in HTML5 for that?
Not yet. No. That's one of the things that we need to work on. Yeah. No. Yeah. I need to spend some time with the standard scripts on that. Yeah.
Yeah, because Ribbit without
the irony is that it becomes less of a phone, and the phone company likes it more because it has more control.
Well, I'm not sure that. I mean, They will see it as an additional device. You know, that's the if you look at the iPad analogy, the iPad is not designed to be a phone device, and you can buy it with or without the telephony contract.
Gina, I bet you agree. I'd have to say I'm much less interested in a Chrome OS tablet than I would be in an Android OS tablet. Yes?
Yeah, I agree. I'm just thinking about, you know, the Kindle app, and I mean, there are just certain apps that I would definitely want. Although this Download Squad piece suggests that possibly this tablet could be free with a Verizon contract. That's kind of interesting. I mean, yeah, I mean, I imagine so. I mean, we've established that the tablet is mostly a consumption device, and so you could browse and read. But there's still certain apps that I would want, and I think I'm more excited about the idea of an Android tablet versus a Chrome OS. Although I haven't really seen Gina, Chrome OS, you know, running.
Right.
Like I haven't, you know, I ran an early build just to check it out, but I haven't really given it a fair shake yet. So I want to do that.
You've done the Hexa build, right? And that's what I did. Yeah, we haven't done anything but the Hexa builds. So,
Yep, and it's a browser. It's the web.
It's a browser. It's not even really doesn't feel like an operating system. It's just a browser.
Yeah, it's a browser and your favorite web apps, and that's great. I love the web. The web is alive and well.
Right. Not according to Wired magazine.
One more note, teacher. One more note is that we have a story in the feed that Google said in Germany they're launching the Chrome App Store in October.
So really, you're a great person to have on for this, Kevin, because you know probably better than most what HTML5 can and can't do. And really, everything that you're going to see on a Chrome OS has to be an HTML5 app, right? It has to have JavaScript, CSS, HTML5. If it can't be done by that, it can't be done by Chrome OS.
Yeah. Yes, though I think they do have Flash in there as well, so you have the ability to do the stuff that Flash can do.
Boy, I wish they wouldn't put Flash in. I have to say, because it adds a lot of capability. It also has security issues. It makes it slower.
You know, I'm not sort of anti-Flash. It provides capabilities we haven't standard.
Right, like capturing audio and video.
We've got an audio and video capture tool built into the system. Then having Flash to do that is good.
Right.
Ooh, so I'm breaking up a bit.
Yep, that's all right. Welcome. Well, Verizon probably just noticed that we were doing this show, and all the bits will suddenly get jammed somewhere down the road. All right, well, let's take a break and come back. We're going to talk some more about this subject, and there is more Google news this week. I don't know how they keep coming up with more stuff, but Germany's getting some privacy in Street View. Google TV, maybe it's stalling. I'm very intrigued by what Apple's going to do September 8th. They're going to announce, well, we know something, probably new iPods. I think they're going to announce a iTV, an Apple TV to compete with Google TV. We'll talk about that. And Marissa Mayer and why she should be careful on what she clicks. Whoopsies. Before we do, though, I would like to mention my friends at GoToMeeting. That's the Citrix folks that do such great stuff. And boy, I tell you, GoToMeeting on the iPad, and I think GoToMeeting on a Chrome OS would be just spectacular. On the iPad, it's amazing. You could take your iPad. I could sit outside as long as I'm within Wi-Fi range. Actually, I bet it would work on 3G. I haven't tried it. I get audio. I get video. I get your desktop on my iPad. I can see what the meeting's all about. It is a great way to get more done, bringing people together for either sales, training, collaboration, any kind of meeting. You know, a meeting on the phone without the visuals just starts to really, I don't know, it's hard to keep people focused, hard to keep them engaged. But as soon as they've got something to look at, it's a great web conference. Now, I've tried a lot of web conferencing tools. There is none better than GoToMeeting. VoIP is included. You can call via the phone or via your computer. 128-bit SSL, 24/7 customer support, easiest to use, easiest to install, and very affordable, $49 a month for unlimited meetings, all the meetings you want, as long as you want, as often as you want. But I'm going to give it to you free for the first month so you could see for yourself. I love it when companies offer free trials. I think it's the only way. We were talking about this yesterday, how advertising, you know, for so many years was tricking you. You know, you're going to have bad breath if you don't use GoToMeeting. Girls won't like you if you don't use GoToMeeting. Instead, we're back to features and benefits. This is the product. This was it. This is what it does. Try it. You make the decision. I think that's in the internet age. That's called trusting the customer. And I really applaud Citrix for doing it. GoToMeeting.com/twig, TWIG, Try it free for 30 days. You be the judge. Go to Meeting. I think you'll like it. Go to meeting.com/twig. We thank them for their support of This Week in Google. So, actually, Neil Dash also clicked the Twifficiency button. And Marissa Meyer did. And she apparently has a Twifficiency of 0. And Neil Dash apparently has a Twifficiency of out of bounds error.
Knowing a Neil, that may have been just a really well-crafted jope.
Oh, it could have been. Oh, it could have been, couldn't it?
Yeah, I think he was joking.
I didn't even think of that.
Although you never know with him. But I'm pretty sure he was joking.
It's his dry wit. They've changed the Twifficiency site now. There's a checkbox, so you can calculate your Twifficiency, whatever the hell that is. It's another one of those sites. I like Clout, K-L-O-U-T. I think that's actually fairly, at least it has lots of pretty graphs.
Clout was great. Twifficiency was just an OAuth app that the 17-year-old was playing around with the Twitter API, and said, Twitter's turning off their basic authentication, so everything has to go to OAuth in the next 2 weeks.
Good.
So you'll see a lot of, which is great. So you'll see a lot of people saying, hey, I have to retool my Twitter app because, I have to use OAuth. So he wanted to teach himself OAuth, so he made this app, which I believe is sort of, just kind of for fun. I don't even think that the algorithm is anything. The calculation is very
so because it's OAuth. James Cunningham is requesting a token from Twitter. I'm going to allow it because I'm logged into Twitter. Now this is the problem. Marissa Meyer did it, and it automatically tweeted her efficiency. I think I might have just done it too. Whoops.
You did, because if you do it, if you allow the app access, it will tweet for you.
Whoops.
And you make fun of Marissa.
Well, no, but he's changed it. There's a checkbox, but I think I forgot to uncheck it. Whoops.
Excellent.
Not your fault, Marissa. We'll forgive you because I'm the same idiot. And you think
this is the problem. So basically, OAuth gives you the ability to selectively give different preferences to different applications, but Twitter doesn't give you a UI for that. So if the app says, I want to tweet on your behalf, you don't have a checkbox for saying, no, you don't get to tweet on my behalf.
Right.
So if it asks for that, you've either got to say, no, I don't get to use this app, or yes, and then it will tweet on your behalf. And this is a spammy mechanism that lots of these apps have done. And Twifficiency, I don't think, was trying to be spammy. He just built a sort of default simple thing. But because it was, here's my thing, what's yours? And you think, what is that? And you click on it, it doesn't tell you any information until you sign up, and then you've gone around the loop. He's built like the smallest self-propagating stupid web thing. There was this thing, personal hype quotient, which somebody did at South by 2 years ago to parody this movement.
Right.
And so when I saw this, it was exactly this. It says, my personal hype quotient is rising because I'm whatever.
Because I'm hyping myself.
And it spoofs this on your behalf, but this is like the purest, simplest form of that.
Well, at least mine is 1%. Marissa's is 0%.
The key is when you sign up, when you create an app, you can say, I give it read access or read write. So whenever you allow an app to access your Twitter stream, just check to see if it's read or read write. Because if it's read write, it's very possible that it will send messages on your behalf, just in case.
Right, but this is the problem. The problem is you don't get an option to say, no, you only get read only.
Right. This is that same issue that we have when we install apps on our Android phones, and it says, I'm going to do this, I can do this, this, and this. You can't uncheck one of those boxes. It's all or nothing.
Yeah,
it's true.
That's right. And there's a great post that Randy Farmer wrote based on some of the discussions we had at, if I can find it, about these problems. The problem is that how do you decide when to authenticate an application and when not? And the answer is, well, you try and you see what your friends have done. But if your friends have been fooled by it, then they'll go there too. Right. So what Randy had a great debate at IW before last, and we said what you want is for your friends to be able to say, this thing cheated me, I'm disallowing it, and when you go to the sign up screen, it says, Leo says this thing cheated me. Kevin says this thing cheated me. And you go, oh.
Never mind then.
So he called this the cake is a lie. He named it after the portal thing. Is that you want to be able to write the cake is a lie on the wall of the app.
Right. By the way, my personal hype quotient is a whopping 8 out of 10.
Oh, you're doing well there.
Yeah, it says, I'm currently on book tour, or I wouldn't be engaging in this crap. I defy you all to check your personal hype quotient. That's really funny. Thank you for that link, Kevin. I appreciate it. kind of fun to play with. Let's see. Moving on to other stories. We did mention this briefly, but let's apparently, according to Chris Anderson in Wired magazine, the web is dead. That other forms of traffic have outpaced the web. We're not going to surf www. Forget it. We kind of talked a little bit about this app thing. It's kind of like that, as apps have replaced the web.
Well, didn't Gina just go to his point a little bit? I hate to say this, by saying, "Oh, I don't want something that's just a browser. I want an app."
Yeah, we did, didn't we? We said that, didn't we?
A little bit.
Well, yeah, and it's what we want both.
That's
we want
it.
For the browser to be capable enough to do apps. That's what I was saying.
We want
At
choice.
the moment, it's not quite there. I would like the browser, the HTML5 to give me as many facilities to build any app I want, and it's getting there with the HTML5 stuff. You can do huge amounts of things that you couldn't do before, but it's not quite there with device drivers and audio, video input, and a few other bits and pieces, and it's not fully distributed across a bunch of different things. So, but we're getting closer, and there's the same sort of trade-off of, is this thing standardized enough that I can write the code in one place and have it run in lots of places, not worry about what it's running on. The web is the best example of that we've ever had. And Android is sort of somewhere along that line. We've got a bunch of different devices and it kind of runs on them, but you have to do a little bit of debugging here and there. It's better than we've had, with, say, running Java apps in the browser, but it's not completely smooth. And the web isn't completely smooth either, but it's getting a lot better. So
Gina didn't just kill the web, then we don't...
In my defense, and in the web's defense, most of my favorite apps are add-ons to existing web services. There are only a few things, a few apps that I use that don't have a web component. Pandora, Mint, My Tracks, the Twitter app, Gmail, Calendar, all these things have web-based components. They're add-ons. The Kindle app is one app that I really like on my phone and would really like on my tablet, and I can't read my Kindle books. Not that I can't, but there isn't a web interface for that. But that's a rare exception. I mean, what other apps?
Does it really matter if it uses HTTP or TCP or UDP or FTP? I mean, what do we care?
Right.
We say, let's preserve HTTP like that's some magic thing.
Well, there's a couple of things going on there.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Just the part of the Wired story was calling Facebook an app. Well, in the broader sense, yes, it is, but it works on HTML.
Yeah.
It's a web app.
Yeah.
It's a web app. Yeah.
So really, that right there kind of undercuts their argument pretty well. Oh, you mean a web page is undercutting the web? Huh?
Right. Well, also there's a certain amount of are we comparing similar things here? Because the left-hand set of that graph is all protocols. FTP, Telnet, whatever, UEC for news groups. And it says web. And does that mean HTTP? Because if it means HTTP, then that video chunk should be mostly HTTP.
Oh, that's
should
right.
be web as well.
That's right.
Because most video is HTTP.
Right. So what is the web? What is the web? Is another question.
The web
is an agreement.
Being what it is. It lives. It breathes.
Right. Look, as long as it's all on the internet, I don't really care. I mean, look, this show... Most people who are watching this show are watching it on a web page. The transport that we're using in many cases is Flash. In some cases is H.264. In some cases it's HTTP. Some cases it's UDP. Who cares? The content
I find it ironic that both Wired magazine and Rupert Murdoch are declaring dead the thing that's killing them.
Yeah, surprise. What a surprise. Ooh, Condé Nast doesn't like the web. By the way,
that was my comment. It's like, Wired declares the web dead. The web is surprised that Wired's still alive.
We called up today. Frederique, my assistant, came to me and said, I can't do it. I said, what? She said, you wanted me to cancel the paper Wall Street Journal because I get the Wall Street Journal on my iPad and on the web. So I said, why am I getting the paper journal? It costs me $10 more to not get the paper journal. If I want to cancel the paper, I have to pay more. Rupert Murdoch has set it up for some reason I don't quite understand that it's cheaper to get the paper and the web than to just get the web.
Simple, Leo. Simple because he's charging all those paper advertisers as if you stare at every ad on all those pages.
So the thing that's lining our bird cage is making him money. He is a tree killer.
He's ripping off the advertisers.
And
Well, which is not just him. It's always been the case. It's the big lie of print that you bought the entire audience of publication as if that entire audience paid attention to it all, when, of course, we didn't. I'm not being a real man. I always threw out the sports section.
Right.
But the advertiser was paying for my attention.
I have to say, as a podcaster, that's a discussion we don't like to get into because advertisers frequently say, well, you're counting downloads, but who's to say they listened? And, of course, there's no answer to that any more than they bought the magazines. Who's to say they saw your ad? Or they bought the newspaper. Who's to say they saw your ad? We don't know. And there was one move for a while to distribute special modified iPods that actually watch what you listen to. Nobody, fortunately, thank goodness that's gone by the wayside.
Well, I mean, there's Last.fm. That feeds back what you've listened to. Your iPod, iTunes knows what you've played, and it propagates it back from the iPod, or at least it used to. I mean, it stopped working for mine a while back, but so you can actually run little scripts on iTunes in the match menus and say, give me a playlist of things I haven't already played and stuff like that.
But it doesn't show you've listened to the whole thing, or does it?
There's a threshold. I think it shows you what you can find out what fraction you've listened to. I think
really
there is an API in there, but it only assumes only if you've listened to it on an iPod or iTunes. If I copy it to my Android and listen to it, it has no idea, and that's the problem I've had with iTunes. Once I started listening to podcasts on Android, it said, "Oh, you haven't listened to this. I'm going to stop downloading it for you." It's like, no, I have listened to it, just not on your starting device.
So now we know that Rupert Murdoch, Condé Nast, Prince, and the latest, John Cougar Mellencamp, hate the internet. Mellencamp says, I think the internet's the most dangerous thing invented since the atomic bomb.
Boy.
Wow. And I thought McGuinness was back. Okay.
Prince says it's full of numbers, and that can't be good. I swear.
Bono says we should be like the Chinese government. That was a good one.
There's good. And just block the things we don't like. It's not good for you. We know what's good for you. Moving right along. So I think we've concluded the web is not dead. That's good.
The web's alive still.
The web's alive. Now, Gina, you have an article, or you're talking a little bit about this Google Me. I think we're getting closer and closer to a Google Me.
Yeah, I think so too. A former Google employee, I was asking him about what he knew about Google Me, and the answer was nothing. But he said that
of course not.
A user experience designer at Google Paul Adams had done a presentation, and the slides were up on SlideShare, and he said,
"That's a really nice presentation."
Yeah, he said, if you read this, if you look at this presentation, you'll get a good idea of what Google Me is going to be, and it's an excellent presentation, and I linked it on the friend feed. But we had talked about how we really hope that Google Me just doesn't aim to clone Facebook and kind of catch up. We're hoping that it's going to do something different and new and kind of solve some of the problems that people have on Facebook. And if this presentation is any indication, it's going to do that. Adams basically talks about how, we all have these different groups of people in our lives and different levels of relationship. He talks about this woman, Debbie, who, lives in San Diego and has some friends in LA who work at a gay bar, and they post kind of pictures from the wild nights at the bar on Facebook, and she comments on those. But she also coaches a 10-year-old girls swimming team. And so she's friends with some of her swimmers on Facebook as well. And
yeah, baby.
And during the sort of user research, interviewing that they did with her, she was horrified to realize that her swimmers could see her comment on the gay bar pictures, and how that in real life this just doesn't happen, right? Because you go to your mom's house for Thanksgiving and you behave one way in front of Uncle Bill and Aunt Marge, right? But when you're with your friends at Hooters, you act a totally different way. But on the internet, it's one friends list, and a status update goes out to everyone regardless of context. So it sounds to me like Google's really going to attempt to make it easy to differentiate between strong ties and weak ties, and also differentiate between different social contexts. Now, to me, this sounds like a user interface
nightmare. Nightmare.
Yeah, a challenge, I suppose.
It is the hard problem. The hard problem is specifying groups, yeah.
Yeah, it is. And, Buzz does a pretty good job of this, right? I mean,
well, they have it. I don't know if, does anybody use that?
Well, this is the question. Does anybody use it? Are we going to take the time to garden our various contexts and groups? Am I going to take the time to post status updates to my family group versus my, my kids group and my swim team? I don't know. But this presentation also talks about how important profiles are, which I think is interesting because I do think Google Profiles is going to be central to Google Me, and how our, the way that we create our identity online. I mean, we all care very deeply about how other people see us. Actually, there's a photo of a woman who is in high heels on crutches. And he makes the point, like, people care about what the perception is and what they look like to others. And how do we do that online to various groups? But it's a really good presentation. I recommend it. But if Google's
Smarterware.org is right on the front page of Gina's site, so you can get to it. That's the easiest way.
If Google can pull this off, Google Me sounds really neat. I just hope that it's not just a sea of toggles and drop downs and checkboxes.
This is what the user interface is going to look like, and I'm excited.
I mean, so you've got a bit of this in Buzz, but it's slightly buried. I don't know if you've seen this in Buzz.
Yep.
If you go in Buzz, you can... when you create a new Buzz, you can decide which group it goes to.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
But does anyone do that? Leo,
never done it. I've never even set up
there's a little drop down at the bottom that says public on the web, and if you choose that... Oops, I've got crap in the way.
So when I create a new one, I could choose whether I want this public or private.
And if you click private, it lets you choose which groups.
And then
this is also where Zuckerberg goes by saying we have one identity, which pisses off people. But this idea that you can completely fence off one world from another world and they will never cross. As Gina says, yes, the presentation shows there are new ways for them to cross, but they've always been able to cross.
And you know what's nice, and this is where Google really has an advantage. If you've been using Google Contacts or Android, you already have set up groups. You see, because I was using Google Voice, I have different messages for my family and different messages for my friends, and I have Start in Android. So I can use, those groups are already here. I could use those. I could say, this goes to my family only.
You do, and they are. And in this presentation, he talks about how most people have maybe 2 to 4 or maybe 6 strong ties. Those people who you actually are going to call on your phone a couple times a week. And Google has that information, especially if you're using an Android phone. They know who you're emailing, who you're calling, who your strong ties are, who your weaker ties or more temporary ties are. So they can use that data to to help you. I mean, it talked about how people self-censor, when they post to Facebook because they don't want to say things. They don't want to talk about
or they wish they had.
Or they wish they had, right?
Yes.
But they're not going to post a tweet about or whatever about what a jerk their boss is if they're aware that their boss is.
Oh, my employees do, but my employees are the only ones who actually have bosses who are on Buzz, Facebook, Twitter, Google, all of that stuff.
I mean, I just hope that Google Me doesn't make you work too hard. And I mean, if you're using Gmail and especially if you have an Android phone, Google knows a lot about who your strong ties are.
That's one of the things that just changed this week in Buzz. They're making recommendations now based on who you email and stuff, right? You get a recommend to follow.
Right, which is nicer than just auto following you, which is what they did before with it.
Yeah, it's a big improvement.
We've decided you should follow this person. Wait, what? They've had that in Google Talk for ages. It will arbitrarily add people if you email them enough.
I hate that.
Slightly irritating.
Yeah.
But the other thing that they've got, which is in Gmail somewhere and is a bit subtle, is the have you seen the Did You Forget Bob, or is that the right Bob? Plugins in what do you call it, in Labs?
I think it's in Labs. Yeah,
Gmail Labs.
Yeah.
So there's a group in Israel that Don't Forget Bob it is, and what the other one is Got the Wrong Bob. What those do is they look at who you email together as groups, and they say, wait a minute, you just emailed Leo and Jeff, and you left out Gina. Do you want to add Gina in? Or you said you just sent that to the wrong Jeff. Are you sure? Normally you include Jeff in that group, and you've just included this other Jeff. You got the right one. So it's looking at the patterns you use and trying to construct groups for you. So that's an interesting. Again, it's traffic analysis, the kind of thing Google's fairly good at. And the challenge with all these things is coming up with UX for people so they actually understand what's being asked of them. And that's the bit that's going to take them a lot of time to work through all this, is to say, actually, I don't want you automatically adding people to that group, but if you help me construct a group from the set of people I email frequently, that will be useful. You
know what this really is a great kind of a public works project for social scientists. Suddenly, if you're a social scientist or a UX expert, you suddenly are a hot commodity because this isn't a computer science problem. The computer science is done. This is a UI problem. This is a how do we teach people how to use this problem? Go ahead, Jeff. I see Jeff's hand up.
I'm trying to my penalty box here. When Jake and I met with Mark Zuckerberg, he said something at the end that I loved, which is that Facebook is a technology and sociology company.
That's interesting.
And it's really trying to do that. It's trying to find the ways that people are behaving and help them do what they want to do.
Does Google, Kevin, no, we have the right guy here because Kevin Marks was in charge of profiles for a while. I know Rick Clow is now in charge of profiles, but you've been...
I saw Rick, by the way, at Google.
Oh, yeah?
And he does promise to come on the show when he has something.
And did he give it like a time frame, like September, anything?
They're not going to give you a time frame.
It'll be done when it's done. It's like Michelangelo.
Yeah, that's Google rules. It's like when it's ready, we'll ship it.
Yeah.
Or the case of Buzz, not.
Right.
There's a bunch of bits and pieces that are built up that you need to do this, and the profiles is part of it, the contact stuff is part of it, the groups is. The other piece of this is coming up with standards so that we can move stuff between sites, which is part of the stuff I've been working on inside Google and outside as well. We've got the portable contact stuff, got the activity streams for sending flows of events back and forth. And if you look at the stuff they're building up in bars, they're very much building on that work and doing that now, and I suspect they'll continue along that line. So, and there's Open Social as well. Open Social incorporates a bunch of that stuff and standardizes it, and that's still going on. Not as loudly as we were talking about it 2 years ago, but that's because the loud bit's done. It's now infrastructure. It's now running on lots of sites, and a lot of this is making sure that we can do this in ways that you can move between places and it isn't one giant monolith that belongs to one company. And my experience with Google has been that they've done this well in terms of working on the standard stuff, but they perhaps have been less good at integrating into product and getting the UX and the sociology right. That would probably be something that even they'd accept.
Are they hiring social scientists? Are they working on that?
I don't know. I haven't spoken to them. They had a definite deficit in that area. They had Yuri as their accidental sociologist because they hired him and he was doing a lot of that stuff.
Thing, yeah.
And I'm not sure they've really replaced him. They did just buy all the guys from Slide. So there's a lot of experience of practically doing that there, and I suspect that will be a good fit. Because if you look, there was this big sort of Slide is social gaming buzz in the papers, but it isn't. Slide has always been about social interaction, about self-presentation and things like that. If you look at their portfolio, it's mostly photo sharing, top friends, stuff like that is about structuring your relationships and presenting stuff to different groups.
Can you think of somebody who does this? Can you think of somebody who does this well right now, Kevin?
Does
this UI stuff, the ability to parse this and make sense of it. One of the reasons Twitter succeeded is because there was so little to make sense of. It was very straightforward. One of the reasons Facebook, I think, has faced real challenges is, and it shows up in their settings for privacy, it's hideously complex, and it really goes over people's heads. Is there somebody who's has a complex system that they figured out an easy way to demonstrate it?
Not that I've seen. I think this is a hard problem. I think the problem is there's this sort of tension between declaring this stuff and not declaring it. I think probably the one that I think has been reasonably good has been Flickr with their very, very simple friends checkbox, family checkbox.
Yeah.
So default public, but you can pick those two as the constraint, and then they're not alternatives, they're additives. You can decide friends and family, or just friends, just family. And that was a fairly early design. I think they've got reasonably good uptake of that. I think most of their stuff is public, but they've got a good uptake of shared stuff like that as well. But I'm seeing startups and people working about that. Do you know Greg Narain? Who he's got a startup called Little Grams, which is about helping you sort of share your baby's first moments and stuff like that. And a big chunk of the stuff that he's talking about there is saying you have a set of different groups of people that some of them are the grandparents and want to see every damn thing, and some of them are your friends and they just want to see something every now and then, and you want to help people construct those subgroups easily and connect the stuff across systems. So there's a bunch of people looking at this stuff, but it is difficult to get exactly right. And the hard part is trying to do it all in one system. If you actually look at behavior at the moment, we tend to use different sites for different aspects of ourselves, and you don't that presentation that you showed talks about that explicitly. It says we have these different subgroups, and the way we model that at the moment is we have a bunch of people on LinkedIn and a bunch of people on Twitter and a bunch of people in email and a bunch of people somewhere else and in some news site somewhere that we use for the soccer club or whatever. And they're all separate groups that we've built, and we sort of police them by having them in different spaces that we use for those different tasks. And the challenge is combining those together in a useful way, without accidentally making it too easy for people to bridge them, so that they can suddenly reveal your Suicide Girls membership to your LinkedIn friends or whatever.
Don't look at me. So Google, maybe one of the ways you can decipher what Google's up to is through API changes. And there were three new Buzz API features. There's a garden hose, but I think there's two that I think are telling. There's an API. This came out this week to return the people associated with a particular activity query. The example they give is if you wanted to see people associated with Red Sox near Fenway Park, you could then aggregate buzzes, I presume it's buzzes or searches, around that, which I think is very interesting. And then you can now discover and explore content related to a particular post. So you can developers can access and deliver Google search results related to the topic of that post. So you could be looking at a Gina blog post, Smarterware, and you could have a button on it that said, want related things, and Google would generate the related things out of that. And this is Buzz API, so I guess it's Buzz results.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Leo, we visited with Ed Williams this week too, and where they're kind of heading with Twitter is much the same thing. As they get to locations, people follow and gather around locations. They follow and gather around times and topics as well as people. Yeah, and that's the kind of search you want to do. Unfortunately, this search URL is giving us the raw XML here, but I mean, really kind of cool. And that makes all the data that they've got embedded in Twitter or Buzz much more useful if you can search it with these proper parameters. In some ways, API reflects this UI problem. It is a way of exposing something that people might want in a way that a developer can make real.
Right.
Yep.
I'm sure that Kevin would come up with some apt phrase, but the API is intention kind of written into code.
There's definitely intention in API. There are definitely times when you want to do something and the API just doesn't quite support it.
Right.
But absolutely.
So that's very much it. It's a worldview of like, you're encoding a worldview whenever you're building an API. You're saying this is the way the world works. Call it my way, and it will work this way. And that. The challenge of the standardization part of that is getting those different worldviews to cohere and to say, well, yeah, you have this model of people behaving this way, and you have this model of people behaving this way. Can we actually combine them? Well, we'll add an optional location field so that the places that have it can put it in, the ones that don't. You can look at stuff like that. If you look at the activity stream stuff, in most of the mailing list is people arguing about should this be called this or this, and is this thing like that, and is a location a point or an address or a sort of general geographic name, and how do you say which it is? It's sort of slightly fuzzy stuff like that, but that's how you actually get these things to move between sites.
Are we past baby steps on this?
Yeah, no, we're starting to see actual activity on this. Pardon the pun. We're starting to, the interesting stuff about Buzz is that they are trying really hard to build this stuff on the open standards, and the open standards guys are sort of keeping them to that and saying actually you've hard coded something that's Twitter specific here or whatever. Right. But that's their definitely the vibe I get from that team is that they care about doing it that way and doing it well, and they're more focused on that side of it than on hitting shipping deadlines for particular things, which I think is encouraging.
We're going to wrap it up. I mean, there's so many things to talk about, and I'm looking at our rundown. We have hundreds of items still in there. Is there anything? I'll give you all a chance. Is there anything that you think we've missed, or something that you would like to bring up, Gina, that is going on right now that we should talk about? Google TV, we really didn't talk about. Wall Street Journal says it's going to be a tough sell to partners.
There's a particular Android app that launched that may be your tool, so I don't want to say it.
Okay. Go ahead, because I don't have a tool.
Is your tool an Android app this week?
No, go ahead. I don't actually have a tool yet. I have to think of it while you're doing your tip.
Oh, okay.
What is it? What is the app you want to talk about?
Voice actions.
Right? Oh, isn't that? Did we not talk about that?
We didn't. So last week, it was the day before the mobile announcement, right?
That's right. We speculated on it.
Yeah, we speculated that it would be music, but we were completely off.
I love these mobile actions. Unfortunately, my Droid X is 2.1, so I had to go to the Nexus 1, but it works very nicely.
It works really well, like surprisingly well, right? I mean, given Google Voice. I have my doubts, but it's done really well.
Maybe it's my voice, or maybe I know how to do it, but I get really 90% or more accuracy when I dictate to it. I'm very careful, I enunciate and so forth. But I sent text messages. I almost said sext message. Text messages. I sent test emails. You could say note to self, and it'll send you an email with the note. I just think this is really slick.
Yeah, it's a great app, and it's in the market. Google Voice Actions. It's really cool, and I like how you dictate what you want, and then it gives you the prompt and says, "Hey, is this what you want?" And then you say yes, depending on whatever the action is. But
that's a good way to handle it. Yeah.
Yeah, it is really taking advantage of Android's voice control, which is something that the iPhone doesn't have. So I mean, the last big mobile event was navigation, which is also something the iPhone doesn't have. So I feel like they're obviously really trying to make a point of the things like voice actions that to differentiate themselves from other platforms.
It was kind of a logical move because that was already an advantage that Android had, which is you could dictate a lot of things, and now it's just dictation everywhere. There is this application on the iPhone that Apple owns called Siri that does this and more. I mean, you could say book me a table at Post Trio.
That's right.
And it will do it. So Apple has the technology in an app. I would love to see them incorporated into the OS. I think this may be.
Gina, what's it under in the marketplace?
I'm sorry?
What's it under in the marketplace?
Google Voice Actions.
And they also went public with Chrome to Phone, which anybody who listens to this show knows all about already because it was your pick many, many, many weeks ago, and I've been using it for a while. And that requires also 2.2. So it's interesting. That's another thing I found interesting, as long as we're reading tea leaves, that Google is starting to push technologies that require Froyo, even though most handsets still are not Froyo.
But we're getting there, right? I mean, so the old Droid has Froyo. That's been going out over
I upgraded my Droid to 2.2.
Yeah, mine came up. Yeah, I got a 2 out of 3 here. So.
Yeah, the Droid X doesn't. I really wanted to. Actually, that was another thing. There was a little conversation about, I think, Google and others were saying, let's just stop doing these manufacturer corruptions of Android and just put it out straight, please.
I have to apologize. My tip last week about hanging up a call using the power button, I got a couple of upset email from folks who have a build of Android where that setting is not available and the accessibility setting. So my apologies. I'm working with the pure, clean, pristine Nexus 1 where all the options are available.
I'm very tempted to go back to the Nexus 1. I love the big screen on Droid X, but the plain Google experience is still far superior, to everything else out there.
Well, it depends. I mean, depends what they do with it. The Sprint one is really annoying because they've got a bunch of apps baked into it that you can't delete that I don't want. Yep. That's just nasty.
You mean you're not a NASCAR fan, Kevin?
I was going to say NASCAR. Come on, Kevin. I mean, aren't we all NASCAR?
But also, I haven't got a Sprint sim in this. It's just a gadget for me. So it just sits there and sulks at me because he's trying to contact Sprint specific things that aren't there. This one, the Galaxy S. Actually, I mostly like what they did to it here, except for they changed the checkboxes to their own look of checkboxes that are grey with a big check mark in them, and then you get a green check mark if they're checked, and it throws me every time. I think I've checked something I haven't.
Yeah.
But the thing they let you do on here, which I hadn't seen on any others, they let you change the system typeface, which is kind of nice. So you can switch it over to something else. So. That's there's I don't mind there being some variation on what they can do. I wish they'd standardize where they put the power socket because I've been carrying 3 of these around and I never know where to switch them off and plug them in. But
I also wish they'd standardize the bottom buttons because I keep hitting on the wrong button on the Nexus 1 and the Droid. They've flipped the menu and the back button. By the way,
that's bad.
By the way,
are we ever at an edge case here?
What's an edge case and what?
It's time for a phone off.
A phone off.
You two and how many phones you have. Okay, it's a phone off time. How many phones have you used in the last month, Leo?
Kevin's got me beat.
You used in the last month, Kevin?
Kevin's got me beat. He's got every phone, I would wager. If he's got an Ogden tablet in the office, he's got everything.
I've got 3 or 4 that are actually phones. But
do you have the Streak yet? Do you have the Dell Streak yet?
My colleague had one of those in the UK. Yeah, so I did try that out briefly.
What'd you think?
It's interesting. Again, it's not. None of them seem to. None of the bigger ones yet I've seen have as good touch control as the iPad or this generation of phones. That I've been a little disappointed with that. But it seemed an interesting device. I didn't have a chance to play with it for long enough to rave about it. The Kmart one does feel fairly nasty and does some slightly odd things.
Yeah. I think Android does, and this is one. So when Apple advocates are comparing the iPhone to the Android phones, that's one thing they'll always say is, see, it's just slightly sluggish when you try to slide the screen, and that may be an Android thing. I don't know, but I always say, but where's your back button? That always gets them. Where's your back button? What do you do when you want to back out of something?
Well, the thing I show people swipe and they go,
Swipe is awesome. Swipe rocks.
I can't download it. You can't buy it. Why can't I buy Swipe for the phones that haven't got it yet?
Swipe comes on the Droid X. I know. We had this whole argument. In fact, Gina told everybody to get Swipe, then Swipe got mad. Then they came back and said, okay, you win. And there's a beta. No.
Just put it in the store for $5. They make money.
They'd make tons of money because it is really a huge improvement.
Once because I got switched over. Which one of these? I switched over to one of these and didn't have it. And it was like, I can't type like this anymore. Oh, this one.
What is this pecking? True. What is this tapping every character? I can't do
the HTC has its own damn keyboard, which is worse than either the standard Android or Swipe. So you sit here poking at it and it's making stuff up for you.
Yeah. By the way, if you do want to get an Android phone and you've been eyeing the Samsung Galaxy S, today only, as we record this August 18th, T-Mobile is offering the Vibrant, which is their version of the Galaxy S, for $99. So that's a pretty good deal. And so you like that phone? I think it's got the AMOLED screen, which is gorgeous. It's a smaller screen.
I do like it. It's nice.
Yeah. Some people have complained about what Samsung has done with Android, but if it's only checkboxes, I can live with that.
It's only the checkboxes, really. I think nothing else has really bugged me. It doesn't have a search button, which is slightly weird.
What?
It hasn't. It hasn't got a silk screen search button. You have to use the menu to find it.
Oh no, I'm sorry. That's it. Right out. Because the voice actions. You press and hold the search button.
Search button, right.
And the voice actions work. You got it. Why? Huh? All right. All right, Jeff, you have any stories that we've missed that you want to cover?
Stories? No, I don't think so.
Anything else you would like to say before we go to our tip, tool, and number?
No.
Nope. I think I've said my piece. Talked about everything I want to talk about. Let's get Gina Trapani's tip of the week.
Picasa, which never gets as much credit for being a Google product as it should. Fantastic photo manager. There's a new version out, 3.8. You won't get the update automatically if you're running Picasa. You have to go re-download it. But one of Picasa's coolest features, which it's had for a while, is face recognition, right? So it'll scan through all your photos and it'll group, all the pictures that I have of Leo, it'll group together in a Leo pile. And that's awesome.
Just throw them out.
3.8 has this new awkwardly named face movie feature. So I can click on the stack of photos of, my sister, and I can choose create face movie, and it makes this really nice slideshow of just the face kind of centered and the pictures show up around it. And it's really neat. You can watch kids grow up and you can see kind of hairstyles throughout the ages, but it centers the face right in a fixed position. So it's a really neat visual effect. I love it. It's super cool. I'm going to make a bunch of these for my mom of my nephews. I think she's going to love it. It's just a tiny little thing, but the facial recognition plus this new face movie in 3.8.
Oh, that's nice. Because I wanted that. Because when you do the facial recognition, it shows you all those little faces and you can slide through it. And it was like, oh, there's almost something there. And they had that merge them together into one thing before. They never quite worked. But that's nice. I have to play with that.
Yeah, Face Movie is really neat. Definitely check it out and play with it. There's a YouTube video on the link on the friend feed that'll give you with a little demo.
And Jeff's number of the week.
Well, I'll do two sets. The first is tomorrow is the 6th anniversary of the Google IPO.
Wow.
And even though Google stock is down 20% this year, it's up 389% in the 6 years since the IPO. The other number I'll give you is 45 or 43. When Jake and I were at Facebook outside of the conference room where we met with Zuckerberg, there was a very big screen with a very big countdown on it, counting down from 45 days. And so we asked Mark, well, what's happening in 45 days? And he's what? No, the number of Jake says I don't think I can say that. It was visible to any visitor who was there. We didn't learn anything about it. They're counting down to something happening soon. So that's just a teaser.
That's a good number, 45. We don't know what it means.
The secret number,
no idea what it means whatsoever. It could be a new lunch in the lunchroom. It could be anything. You know what? When we talked with Ev and company at Twitter, and they have every employee tweeting there. The interesting thing was that they said that, what are their rules? Their rules are don't be stupid. Obviously, don't talk about any secrets. But the one I loved was this. If you talk about something you're doing in your work, people will read into it. Like, we're so excited. We've been up all night. We've been working on this new thing. Then the whole world thinks, aha, here is Twitter's world acquisition strategy. And it may just be some little upgrade and something you never ever see. So you never know what happens with inside a company. The funny thing is, I felt as if Jake and I were going around, it was the new Hollywood Stars Homes tour. Because you go to these places and we watch them as if they're stars. And they are.
So 45, I think, tonight's the night supposedly Facebook releases its location stuff. And
that's right.
I think I can say this now. When I was at Food Camp, there were some Facebook people there with RFID tags that you would wear a little pin, and you would check in with your little pin. So I don't know if Facebook's going to have a hardware check-in feature. I think everybody's doing geographic.
Oh, they had that at F8, I think.
Yeah. So it's not secret. Maybe it's just a demo of something. Yeah. Yeah. But we expect that tonight. Also in the calendar, the Incredible, according to I think Mashable, the Incredible is supposed to get 2.2 today. So if you're using a Droid Incredible, that would be a nice phone to upgrade to Froyo, I think. My pick of the week is Zagat. The Zagat guides are just great. I think they're a little expensive. They do have them on iPhone as well as Android. It is $10, but I use it all the time because, you could just say if you're in a Zagat area, or Zagat, whatever they call it. I think it's Zagat. You can find restaurants, you can find shopping and hotels. And they are now, it's interesting, they are now adding Foursquare integration. Everybody's got check-in. Everybody. Yelp now has check-in. I am the duke of many locations that I was the mayor of just a few days ago. I'm both mayor and duke of some places. So Zagat is now... King. I want King. Maybe they'll do that. So
you're the king of the cottage.
They also have something called Food Spotting, which is a social platform and mobile app that allows you to share pictures of the foods in your neighborhood. So you might want to check out Zagat. $10, a little pricey, but that covers a year's worth of reviews. They call it Zagat to go. And now with Foursquare and Food Spotting, and it is a great tool to have. Oh, wait a minute. The latest from Android Central, the Froyo update, is not going to come out today on Incredible. That was just a bad rumor. So there's the details. I'm still waiting for that Droid X. I was told by the Verizon folks when I bought the Droid X that it would come out in August. So I'm hoping. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Kevin Marks is at Ribbit, ribbit.com. I guess a division of British Telecom. And yes, a great guy to have on anytime we talk about, well, pretty much anything. An expert in so much. Ribbit.com. His blog is Ipeus.
Just search for Kevin Marks.
It's a lot easier.
It's easier to spell than my blog name.
Although
seemed like a good idea in 2001.
It was such a good idea. Now no one knows what the hell it means. epeus.blogspot.com. But it really is actually a great... well, wait a minute. You haven't posted in a couple of monps. What are you up to, Kevin?
I've been on holiday. I should write something.
Get to work. Get to work.
I should write something about the web not being dead.
It's not dead yet.
Be good.
Gina Trapani is at smarterware.org, a great site for anybody who's interested in, well, everything. I mean, she's great on productivity, education, government. Great site. Love it. Smarterware.org. And, of course, as a developer, a great resource on This Week in Google. Thank you for being here, Gina.
Thanks. Great show today.
Jeff Jarvis, the man about town. He's interviewing everybody for his next book, Public Parts, but his current book is, I have it right here, What Would Google Do?
Bless you.
I read it in between shows. Perhaps you didn't know. Available at better bookstores everywhere. His blog is buzzmachine.com. twitter.com. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next time on This Week in Google.